What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel for the Week 10 Waiver Wire Show. I'm your host, Dylan Clemons, and I'm here every week giving you my top 6 waiver wire ads of the week. But before we get started and jump into that, I just want to remind you to please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you don't already, and hit that bell for notifications so you know when a new video gets uploaded to the channel or when we go live. And then head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans and become an all-access member. For a low price of $9.99 a month, you get access to our award-winning rankings, access to our draft cheat sheets, access to our F6P Discord where you get custom league advice and DFS builds, direct access to our F6P teams, and access to our DFS projections and stacking tool. Like I said, just for a low price of $9.99, and you could make that up on one slate of DFS with this group of minds that we got over there. Chris, Robin, Keith Fleming, Dave Eddy, they're doing a great job. So make sure you head on over there and check that out. But without further ado, let's jump into the top 6 waiver wire ads of the week. And if I'm being honest with you, everybody, it is not a good week for the waiver wire, and we have 4 teams on bye as well, 4 good teams. But the first guy here I want to talk about is Demario Douglas, wide receiver, New England Patriots, who is still just owned in 27% of leagues, even after he was on everybody's waiver wire video last week. So I wanted to throw him up on as my number 1 guy in this week's episode. He caught 5 of his 7 targets for 57 yards. Solid PPR day. He finished as wide receiver 29 in half PPR formats, and he was tied in the team lead in targets with Juju Smith-Schuster, and he outsnapped Juju by a lot as well, and he played 82% of the team's total snaps. New England is lacking playmakers outside of Ramondre Stevenson, so they're going to do everything they can to just get this guy the ball whenever they can. He's in the 96th percentile in burst score on playerprofiler.com, so you just get him the ball, and he could go. Decent matchup this week for them, as well as they take on the Colts, who have given up the 13th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position as well. So if you're struggling with injuries or you have a lot of guys on bye this week, Demario Douglas, once again, can be stuck in your lineup and be a borderline flex play like he was last week. This next guy, our old friend Antonio Gibson, running back of the Washington Commanders, 41% rostered in leagues. He's quietly becoming a factor in this Commanders offense. They're using him like we always wanted him to, as a converted receiver from Memphis. He's starting to get involved in the passing game, as he's seen 5 targets in each of the past 2 games while catching all 10 of them. Gibson has now finished as a top 30 running back, which isn't great, I know. A top 30 running backs in 4 of his past 5 weeks in PPR formats. The running back position it is just struggling as a whole, and some rosters just need a body to be able to throw in there, and especially in PPR formats, Antonio Gibson can be that guy. If he catches 5 balls for 40 yards, that's 9 points in PPR formats. You'll definitely take that. It's about a 60-40 split with Brian Robinson right now, and you'll take that with the way we've seen Brian Robinson run at times. Washington gets Seattle this week, who has given up the 11th most fantasy points to the running back position, but they haven't given up a ton through the air. So that'll be interesting, but he definitely deserves to be rostered in more than 50% of leagues. And if you're struggling, once again, he can be thrown into lineups this week with injuries and bye weeks. This next guy is going to shock some people. Noah Brown. He blew up this week, guys. And since coming back from IR in week 6, he has seen at least 5 targets in each game. Brown has also played over 70% of the snaps the last 2 games and definitely has a role in this offense with Robert Woods out of the lineup. And I would assume even when Robert Woods comes back, Noah Brown is still going to be solidified in this role. Man, oh man, did CJ Stroud break out this past week, throwing for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Noah Brown catching, I think he had over 150 yards, and he caught a 75-yard touchdown as well. Just a big play in this offense was absolutely rolling, and it looks like it could be humming for a few weeks to come. Yeah, and hopefully they just rely on CJ Stroud's arm, and it looks like Noah Brown and him have a decent chemistry. So I like this. And this Texans offense, it definitely has more fantasy relevant players than we anticipated, with Nico Collins breaking out, Tank Dell having a big week last week, and Noah Brown finishing as the second best wide receiver in fantasy football last week. So look out for this offense moving forward, and Noah Brown should be rostered in more than just 13% of leagues. And we're really getting into the nitty gritty here, and the cupboards are really bare, guys. And it's Keaton Mitchell, running back, Baltimore Ravens, just rostered in 2.5% of leagues. He produced in week 9 in a blowout against the Seahawks, but it's really hard to see if he's going to actually be in a solid role in this Ravens offense, because the running game's just kind of doing whatever they want right now. Justice Hill actually led this team in snaps at the running back position with 48, while Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell both only played 14 snaps. But Justice Hill didn't produce. Gus Edwards found the end zone twice, just because that's what he does. He's extremely touchdown dependent. But hey, for fantasy football, we love touchdowns. We love fantasy points, and that's what he's doing. But man, oh man, when Keaton Mitchell got the ball, he looked very solid, rushing for 138 yards and a touchdown. And he took place in one of the biggest plays in the NFL this weekend on a 60-yard run for his touchdown. This offense needs some more playmakers. So Keaton Mitchell looked like a guy who you could just get the ball in his hands and let him go. And maybe moving forward, that's what they're going to want him to do, but he's going to need to play more than just 14 snaps. So it's definitely going to be interesting moving forward. I don't think he needs to be picked up and started this week or anything, especially in a tough matchup against the Cleveland Browns, but he's somebody worth keeping an eye on. But this next guy we're going to talk about is his teammate, Odell Beckham, wide receiver, Baltimore Ravens, 33.8% rostered. We finally saw him break out a little bit last week. It's been a disappointing start to his career in Baltimore, but we're definitely starting to see signs. He has seen at least 7 targets in 2 of his past 3 games, and he finally got in the end zone this past weekend as he caught 5 of his 7 targets for 55 yards. It finished as wide receiver 15 on the week. This offense is starting to go as a whole, and it looks like this passing offense is starting to get an identity with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and the new offensive coordinator is finally starting to get his feet wet and get comfortable with each other. So this is really starting to look good. Once again, this isn't a good matchup for Odell, even though he's playing his old team. Maybe we get a little bit of a revenge game narrative. Maybe Odell can figure out a way to find the end zone once again, and maybe he's becoming Lamar Jackson's favorite target in this offense. But I'll pick Odell up. I'll put him on my bench. I'm not starting him this week. So if you need somebody to roster to play just for this week, I'm not sure Odell is your guy against the Browns, but he's someone that we need to keep an eye on. We are in week 10 already, so before you know it, we are going to be in the fantasy playoffs, and you know that anything could happen. And this last guy on the list, I don't love it, and he's on my Bears. It's Darnell Mooney, wide receiver, 21.6% rostered, and he's been, what can I say? He's been very disappointing all season long, but he had a little bit of a resurgence this past week with Tyson Bagent at quarterback, catching 5 of his 6 targets for 82 yards to finish as wide receiver 17 in half point PPR formats. Over the last 3 weeks, he's also seen 15 targets, which isn't great, but it's also solid and better than what he's doing, and he's doing a good job of getting open. He's also the big play threat in this offense. He's recorded a catch of at least 38 yards in 3 of his past 4 weeks. We just want to see him get in the end zone as well. And maybe he does in a decent matchup against the Carolina Panthers this week on Thursday Night Football. We just do not know who the quarterback is this week. Maybe it's Tyson Bagent, who we've seen has good chemistry with Darnell Mooney, or maybe it's Justin Fields, who might be coming back from a dislocated thumb. we've seen Justin Fields and Mooney do well together before. Mooney has 1,000 yards, 1,000-yard year with Fields at the helm at quarterback. But recently he hasn't been good with Fields. So it'll definitely be interesting to see who the quarterback is. But Darnell Mooney is worth a look if this offense keeps going the way it is. He's probably the third in the pecking order in targets behind DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. But Cole Kmet's also banged up now. He was on the injury report. So that is something worth monitoring. But yeah, that wraps up my top 6 guys. I do have a list of guys as well that you could check out at my article at fantasy6pack.net. But those are behind the paywall, guys. So like I said at the top of the show, you got to become an all access member to see that. But yeah, that wraps up the week 10 waiver wire show. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you don't already. And then you can catch me back on the YouTube channel this Saturday doing the week 10 game previews and then the Sunday social show as well on Sunday answering your start sick questions. So until then, I will talk to you later this week. Thanks, everybody.